government and is highly regarded. She has served the state of Maryland for more than 18 years, most recently as the Deputy Secretary of Agriculture. Earlier this year, she was appointed Economic Director for Calvert County. Today's meeting is somewhat of a homecoming for Regent Oakland, as she is an alumna of the University of Maryland College Park. Yehuda Newberger, hi Yehuda, brings the board a valuable private sector perspective as an active private equity investor with investments in a broad range of business sectors. Regent Newberger is an alumnus of Johns Hopkins University and the Harvard Law School. And Farah Halal is an undergraduate student at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Regent Halal is completing dual degrees in political science and global studies. She is a student in the Honors College and is also a scholar in the Sondheim Public Affairs Program. This year begins her first of 2 years serving as a student regent. I welcome each of you to your first official meeting of the board and look forward to working with you in the months and years to come. I also want to acknowledge our 2 new officers. In a special board meeting this month, the board elected Regent Edmond as vice chair and Regent Pope as treasurer. Both regents have had years of experience on the board, leading committees and work groups. I truly value their insight and expertise and look forward to working with them in their new positions. In a few minutes, we will hear from our host this morning, University of Maryland College Park President Darrell Pines. President Pines and the UMD community, on behalf of the board, I thank you for your hospitality. The campus and the town look different with each visit. The college town feel is evolving beautifully, and you should be very proud. After President Pines, we have a presentation on the power of systems from Nancy Zimpher, former Chancellor of the State University of New York system. And then, of course, Chancellor Perman will issue his report, followed by reports from the councils. Before moving forward with the agenda, let me share that earlier this morning, Chancellor Perman and I had the pleasure of presenting the 2022 USM Regent Staff Awards. The USM staff, over 40,000 plus, are the heart of the system and the success of our students and the system as a whole. This morning's honorees represent the best of our staff as determined by their institutions. Each recipient will receive a $2,000 award and a plaque. Once again, I want to thank and congratulate our winners. In the category of exceptional contribution, Felicity Knox from Towson University and Donna Carey from Salisbury University. Can you raise your hand? In the category of outstanding service, Maureen Sister Shrimpy from College Park. In the category of extraordinary public service, Tanya Jones from Bowie State University. In the category of effectiveness and efficiency, Jackie Gabrielian from Towson University and Haley Christie from Salisbury University. In the category of inclusion, multiculturalism, and social justice, Catherine Atkinson from College Park. Let's give this year's award recipients a hand. Dr. Pines, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Welcome to College Park. Good morning, Madam Chair, Chancellor Perman, and all members of the Board of Regents. To my colleagues, institutional presidents, welcome Valerie and welcome Carolyn to your first meeting. We're happy to have both of you join the team of presidents of USM. So I thought I would talk about the power of one institution at USM, since the follow-up talk is on the power of systems. So thank you so much for allowing me to just speak a little bit about College Park. Here's a quick agenda. welcome to the flagship, welcome to the University of Maryland, welcome to College Park. I'll talk about the vision that I have for the university, some metrics for excellence, discussion about inclusion, and end with an impact story. So again, welcome. Just if you don't know College Park, you're sitting on 1,340 acre campus. We have 405,000 alums, 41,272 plus or minus a few students, 12 schools and colleges, and we do over $600 million in annual research, and we have a $1 billion endowment. This is where we are. You're sitting in Stamp Studio, which is exactly almost the center and midpoint of our campus. Inside the Beltway, literally 8 miles from the White House, 30 miles from Baltimore, and hopefully we'll have a new purple line that will connect us to New Carrollton and to Bethesda in the next 4 years. When I came and started as president on July 1st, 2020, as you know, we're in the crazy year of 2020. Pandemic, social unrest, and uncertainty in our democracy. And so when I started, I had 2 high priorities, and I sent them out on day 1. Number 1, that the flagship would be excellent in everything that we do, with nothing being left at the table. Everything that we do, teaching and learning, research, innovation, the arts, and athletics. And then number 2, that we would create an inclusive, multicultural community second to none, where every person who comes on this campus feels like they can achieve their full potential. Because I believe that excellence is rooted in our values, and whatever this university does matters locally, in the state, nationally, and in the world. So a few indicators of excellence of College Park. One measure, of course, are ranking systems, a variety of ranking systems that we all have to unfortunately be a part of because they all are determined by different factors, but they're important measures of some things that we do. So the U.S. News and World Report. We've always been ranked roughly in the top 20. The rankings came out just recently. But what's really important, we now have 73 programs ranked in the top 25 of the U.S. News and World rankings at both the undergraduate and graduate. That's really one of our high points that we've ever had at this university. We're very proud of the Princeton Review ranking. Why? Because we spent 30 years of building an entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem second to none, starting with a living and learning program called the Hinman Program, and now entrepreneurship flourishes across our campus. So we've been consistently ranked in the top 10 for the last 7 consecutive years. We're also very happy with our diversity. We are ranked number 23 by diversity issues in higher education, and Towson is ranked number 25, right behind us for graduating African American degrees at the undergraduate level. But we're also just as equally proud by the most recent ranking that we had no idea that we would be the #1 public institution that graduates Black and African American students with a baccalaureate who go on to pursue a doctorate or an MD. That was actually a surprise to us that we would be #1 of all public non-HBCU institutions. And then a Forbes recent ranking. We've been ranked as the number 14 college for value and the ability to get our students internships and high-paying jobs as they exit our campus. So again, this is only one measure of excellence. The real measure of excellence are the people. We have 4,264 faculty. During that time period of the history of this institution, we've had 2 Nobel Prize winners, both in physics. We now currently have 61 members of the National Academies of Science, Medicine, Engineering, Education. We have 5 Pulitzer Prize winners. We have 9 AAAS fellows, just in the last 3 years. And we've had 54 students and faculty be part of the Fulbright program over the last 5 years. We're very proud of that, and we have 5 alums who are MacArthur Award recipients. Now some indicators of inclusion. We probably have the most diverse number of students on our campus in the history of the University of Maryland College Park. We have 4,250 students from 147 countries. I actually couldn't believe that when I got the data a few weeks ago. We have 31 Black student organizations, 11 Latinx organizations, 12 LGBTQ plus organizations, 28 student groups connected to the Maryland Hillel, and 41 Asian Pacific Islander DESI organizations at our campus. And there are many, many more of other groups as well. So we're very, very diverse and very committed to this diversity. So when I became president, I started a program which I called Terrapin Strong. And everybody thought it was just a mask because it said Terrapin Strong on the mask. It wasn't about COVID, it was about a commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity. And what the problem that we all have at all of our universities is that you walk into our campuses and you walk into typically a college or a department, and that tends to be the first door. And if that college does a good job of welcoming you, then you feel that you're part of the university and you're part of the campus. I wanted to do it where every person who walked onto our campus would enter the first door. That first door would set the shared values, actions, identity, and agency for every human being on this campus. And I called that the Terrapin Strong onboarding program. And that program is rooted in our values. So what does it do? You have to take 4 modules. They're all online. And they talk about an introduction to what Terrapin Strong vision is. It talks about what our Maryland history is and our traditions, and what do we mean by diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what it means to belong and be a part of this community and respect one another. And then you just don't take the modules, you have to go do something. There's an action plan you have to develop so that you're actually really physically thinking about these issues and going around the campus and engaging. So far to date, 30,000 folks have enrolled at our campus. We have a community of 41,000 students. And so we're very excited about where we're going with that program. And now everyone feels like they're connected from the first door in which they enter the university. And we have decided also to now enact a land acknowledgement. Video plays.
Every community owes its existence and strength to the generations before them, around the world, who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy into making the history that led to this moment. Truth and acknowledgement are critical in building mutual respect and connections across all barriers of heritage and difference. So, we acknowledge the truth that is often buried. We are on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway people, who are the ancestral stewards of this sacred land. It is their historical responsibility to advocate for the 4-legged, the winged, those that crawl, and those that swim. They remind us that clean air and pristine waterways are essential to all life. This land acknowledgement is a vocal reminder for each of us as 2-leggeds to ensure our physical environment is in the better condition than what we inherited, for the health and prosperity of future generations. We also acknowledge that throughout our history, our university has not always lived up to our ideals of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today, we reaffirm our commitment to building and celebrating a multicultural community. Please take a moment to consider these many legacies of bias, prejudice, violence, and settlement that bring us here today.
This land recognition was done in partnership with the 3 major tribes of the Piscataway people, and that's where the language came from. So now we'll put that on our website, and that video will be used at some presentations.
Every community.
Also, we did something that's never been done in the state of Maryland. We named a state building after the Piscataway people. We worked with them, and they chose this name called Yahentamitsi Dining Hall, which means a place to eat. And of course, it is a beautiful place to eat. If you ever get a chance to go there, any Board of Regent members, you'll never leave it because there's every food on the planet in that place. I just went there Wednesday night. I tell you, it was off the chart. I didn't want to leave. I didn't eat anything, but there was so much. It was unbelievable. It was packed with students. Sister Maureen could tell you all about it. Now I want to show you just one example of impact. So we often talk about quantum. I left a brochure in front of you, which talks about quantum here at the University of Maryland. But I want to share with you a story about why it's important what we do in research and how it can lead to true impact. So part of what we do, we hire faculty, we give faculty laboratories, we get instrumentation monies from the state, we get buildings built, and it leads to these transformative opportunities where research in the laboratory gets translated to an actual product. That is an actual product. That picture of that black box that you see is an actual quantum computer. And it's about 4 feet by 4 feet by 3 feet. It reminds me of the IBM mainframes, right? That's where we are today. For a quantum computer, we're expected to get really miniaturized in the future. But the point I'm making here is that it started with basic science and research and the recruitment of a faculty member, the building of the physical science complex building, and now it's led to 22 inventions, 75 patent applications, and essentially staff hours who have worked with this team to translate it and get it started. And of course, our facilities folks, to get them into a house facility where they could actually manufacture that computer. It's the same facility that they're actually living in today. So what does that mean? What could happen? Well, that's us on the New York Stock Exchange on October 1st of 2021. I'm there with Chris Monroe, is the faculty member we recruited from the University of Michigan. Peter Chapman is the CEO of INQ, who used to work for Amazon Web Services, a great CEO. And then some of the team from my President's Cabinet, so our Mike Potterella, our legal counsel, Ken Oman, has been working with us to place them into some real estate just off campus, and Chris Monroe and myself, again, at the New York Stock Exchange. Probably the most important part of the picture is that's the turtle pin that I give out to people if they do big things. So I just had to represent the University of Maryland, my turtle pin. That was really important to me, and I had Chris put it on that day. But I want you to feel what we felt, because this is so transformative that now we are working together in the DMV region with all the universities, all the major corporations, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, to go after an NSF engines proposal valued at $160 million, like $16 million a year for 10 years. And we're leading the effort because of the investment in research in this quantum ecosystem. So I want to play this video because I want you to experience what I experienced.
Early this morning on the corner of Wall.
This is what happens when you go on the New York Stock Exchange. They show you a video, and then you go onto the floor of the stock exchange.
Cities and towns, children rise for school, people head to work, economies come to life. When the sun rises across the planet, the engines of capital.
Unfortunately, it's me videotaping, so I apologize for the videography.
Much of the fuel for those engines, billions in invested capital enters the financial ecosystem on our trading floor and through our network built and refined over 2 centuries. The result is progress, a story renewed every day when our bell rings. Fields are harvested, cars are assembled, buildings rise skyward, planes take flight, technology dreams from California to China and points in between are born in a million different ways. Every innovative idea in the imagination of the human brain builds its support with investment ways for how dreamers can change the world. It starts small, 24 workers setting our standards for how stocks can be exchanged. It's grown through highs and lows, reborn with each new wave of enlightenment. Now part of a global trading and data powerhouse, the pillars still stand, a beacon for those with brilliance and determination, and the traders making the modern market. You stand in the footsteps of giants, where history is rewritten with each new assembly on our podium. They gather not to recycle the past, but to reimagine the future. A bright day lies ahead. A new chapter takes shape with each share passing through our pipes. Welcome to Wall Street. Welcome to New York City, the world's financial capital. Welcome to the New York Stock Exchange.
That's cool, isn't it? Yeah. Better when you're in person. Now, here's the best part. This is every American entrepreneur's dream. 9 a.m., ringing of the bell to be on the New York Stock Exchange on that platform that only handles about 14 people. Unfortunately, we could not get up there because we're not part of the firm. But we were there in the audience. That's me with the camera again. Anyway, this is what can happen at one institution. This is what can happen at all institutions of the USM. I just wanted to share with you that fun. So what are we going to do when we go forward? So thanks to Provost Rice and her leadership and the entire staff at the University of Maryland, we developed an exciting strategic plan which has 4 pillars. We reimagine learning. We take on humanity's grand challenges. We invest in people and communities. We partner to advance the public good. And we partner with our colleagues from the USM. These are partnerships that all involve multiple USM institutions with College Park. The Mid-Atlantic Quantum Alliance, Bowie State is on this Quantum Alliance, UMBC is on this Quantum Alliance, and many other universities in the region. The Artemis program, partner with UMBC, the University of Southern Maryland, University System of Southern Maryland, South Maryland office and facility. UMES is on there, Heidi, you probably didn't know that. Doing autonomy and artificial intelligence. The University of Maryland Strategic Partnership, Empowering the State with the University of Maryland, Baltimore, a huge partnership with UMB that is one of our most coveted relationships in the state. Also, we have a partnership with the City of College Park called CP Cup, or City University Partnership. And then, of course, UMGC is partnered with all of us in the consortium of universities of the Washington metropolitan area. And then finally, the Social Justice Alliance with Bowie State, which we're extremely proud, led by Bowie State. And because of this connection, we have invested in Lieutenant Richards Collins Plaza, and it's a point of reflection, but a point of focus on social justice issues for our community and for the world. And we're very excited about what we're doing there. And now I'm almost done. I want to share one kind of highlight video that our marketing and communications team did about where we're heading in the future.
There is a formula for progress. It begins with a belief in the power of science, backed by a bold research enterprise. It's compounded by artists and creators who fire our imagination. It's strengthened by unmatched learning experiences and multiplied by different perspectives and ideas. There is a place where these elements converge every day. United in purpose to do good, the University of Maryland, fearlessly forward. There is a formula.
And one last video for fun.
And I have Maryland pride. What can I say?
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, President Pine. It's clear that there's a lot of exciting work going on here at College Park. Thank you for an awesome presentation. Now we'll shift our attention to our educational forum, which today is on the power of systems. We'll hear from the voice of this topic, Dr. Nancy Zimpher. Dr. Zimpher currently serves as senior fellow at the National Association of System Heads and leading the NASH transformational agenda called The Power of Systems, Advancing Prosperity for the Nation. Dr. Zimpher is Chancellor Emeritus of the State University of New York, SUNY, and from 2009 to 2017, she served as SUNY's 12th chancellor and one of the nation's largest and most comprehensive systems of public higher education. Dr. Zimpher will outline the power of systems, including the background, goals, and 5 imperatives. Dr. Zimpher, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Chair Gooden. It's really a privilege to be here. Chancellor Perman, colleagues on the Board of Trustees and presidents, Daryl, great job. I'm totally impressed. I'm going to go forward with you. I think this is a massive undertaking, but I met several of the presidents at the awards ceremony this morning. You have a fantastic team, Chancellor Perman. I know you know that. And you have a great leadership team in the system office, and Joe Bachman particularly has been at our right side and our left side throughout the transformation of the National Association of System Heads. I'm here today with the Executive Director of what we call NASH, National Association of System Heads, Rebecca Martin. Rebecca, stand. Rebecca is 10 years at leadership of this association, which is now engaged in really literally a transformation. So all credit to you, Rebecca, for everything that you continue to do. So with this amazing clicker, I am going to tell a story and try to keep myself focused. Again, Daryl, thank you for your remarks, and thank you for giving a shout out to the power of, because that's the message today. Our challenges are pretty steep, and I'll just give one factoid. When you round up all the student success that we are experiencing as a country in post-secondary education, and you consider 2-year and 4-year institutions and public institutions and private institutions, it falls to the Lumina Foundation to say we are at 51% of the adult population in this country with some kind of college, maybe a few courses, maybe a credential, maybe a 2 or a 4-year degree. 51% is unacceptable, unacceptable. And when you disaggregate the data, you see more gaps than we want to see in terms of race and ethnicity and Native American status. So we've got work to do. What are we going to do about that? Well, amazingly, as soon as we pivoted, and it's already been mentioned again today, to remote instruction, and I remember one of our chancellors saying, we never closed. Don't say we closed. We went remote, and it was an amazing, amazing piece of work. It was the wisdom of Rebecca and our board members, and Chancellor Perman is a member of the NASH board, to decide that with all of these calls for transformation, we had to do more than solve the immediate crisis of COVID. We had to think about transformation. So at the heart of it, we really are all students. And Rebecca and I remembered the work of Ron Heifetz. He wrote a book called The Work of Leadership, and he reminded us that in the course of major crises, you are on the ground, in the field, solving problems. But as a leader, we have to get on the balcony. We have to get the big picture and see what's really happening here and how we need to change. We ended up calling this fashionably the Big Rethink. This is about 2 years ago in the heat of COVID, I forgot to breathe, and thought about where we really ought to go as an organization of systems. So there are 65 systems in this country. Our membership is almost at 50 now. We're doing some more recruiting. We want everybody coast to coast, but as you can see, we moved from Alaska to Hawaii to Maine and everywhere in between. These systems together educate 75% of the undergraduate population in America. That's astounding. Our footprint is amazing. Just imagine if we could get our collective act together and graduate more students with more courses, more credentials, and more degrees to serve this country both in the quality of our life and in workforce development. Now, we're not new to this. We've been working at student success, actually called Taking Student Success to Scale, for about 10 years. So we know how to do this work. We need investment to do it better, to do it smarter, and to do it more collectively. So like what you do on your campuses, to form such an agenda, a big rethink, we pulled everybody together. We invited key stakeholders from system offices across the country, from campuses, from community groups, from partnerships, from state and federal government to do what you do. We did Zoom meetings, we did webinars, we had design teams, we had architecture for 18 months trying to figure out how we could pull 65 systems across this country, public systems with that footprint, into a new day. Now, most of my slides are done by people who were undergraduate students at SUNY, and they never grew up. So they've just tried to make the point here that we decided to call our vision the power of systems. And more importantly, we decided every big idea has to have sort of after the colon, advancing prosperity for the nation, because the general concept of prosperity is really what we're all aimed at, both social and economic prosperity. And if we're the biggest of the big, if we span from coast to coast, from north to south, why can't we move the student success dial? So we've done this by stating 3 goals. We will increase completion. That's just bedrock. That's what each of your campuses is doing. That's what the system's doing. That's what the systems next to you are doing. That's what the system in New York was doing. Problem is, we weren't doing it smart enough, and we weren't doing it together. We also want to measure social mobility. Some of you know the work of Raj Chetty. He's really the first in the country to try to measure the after effects of a college degree, 2 or 4 year, the after effects of a credential, and turn it into a measure of economic and social mobility. So we want to stand for that. And we also want to play our role in decreasing student loans and student debt. These are goals that in December, Jay is ready for this, we will ask you to raise your hand as a system and say, not only are these goals compatible with us, with you, it's nothing new. What we're gonna do that's new is we're gonna do it together. We're gonna measure our progress over the next 8 years. And by 2030, 51% will be history. That's the goal. Let's be clear. Nothing else, nothing more, just that. With these goals, we did, Joe and others will remember, we spent a lot of time trying to decide how we would guide our work. We ended up calling it imperatives. For my healthcare people, I borrowed a lot of work from healthcare, and I think this was something I learned from healthcare delivery systems. But of course we're going to talk about teaching and learning. Of course we're going to talk about equity, equitable student success. We need to talk more about talent development. We need to own the relationship between our degree structure and the work that our students will go on to do once they graduate. And we need to track that. We probably need a new investment strategy. Some have called it, Ellen Herbst can relate to this, a new business model. This one's not necessarily working for us and needs to come from shared services, efficiencies, and effectiveness. And then my personal favorite is we need to think more about systemness. I have to say that word evolved because Stephen Colbert invented the word truthiness. Did you ever hear that? And so one of these students, ready on the spot, said, you know what, let's just call it systemness. This idea that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, that we can work effectively together and we get more done. We do have a backbone organization. Rebecca is leading that group. We have a lot of volunteer help. We have senior fellows who give us their time pro bono. We've been able to start hiring people to lead various parts of our work. We were a very small organization, about 1.5 FTE, and today we're 15 and more, all rowing in the same direction to try to bring this agenda to life. We have 3 really exciting components to our work. The most exciting is being led by Rebecca Martin, and that's our Institute for Systems Innovation and Improvement. We have taken the plunge. We have taken a pledge that we can get better. And to my healthcare colleagues, this is a model of the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. Where is Michelle? You know this organization. You know their 30-year history. You know that if we were able to create a powerhouse of improvement around clear methodologies and scientific practices in how we treat students every day in and out, we can improve as the healthcare industry does. So thank you for that model. We also need to attend to state policy. We need to advocate for you as a collective. How can they say no to every state in the union saying we can do better? And of course we want and are seeking a federal partnership, mostly around the area of education to work, because recovery is a big issue with this administration and debated in the Congress. And secondly, we have now tuned in to refugee resettlement. What better way to work through the needs of immigrants from Afghanistan, from Ukraine, and from other countries under duress than to take up the mantle of housing refugee students, scholars, and families on our campuses where the capacity exists. So these are our 3 sort of organizational efforts. We are on a track to lift up these metrics. I'm not sure, Jay, that it's quite sunk into every system that we are going to do a roll call in December. But I can't help believe that if all these systems sign on to those 3 metrics with annual reports of our progress every year, it won't move the dial better, higher, and faster. In fact, our gathering this December of really our system members, it's a small gathering of a couple hundred people, we're calling it what gets done. No, I got it wrong. What gets measured gets done. You know that, right? What gets measured gets done. And that's what we're doing when we do this roll call this December. Turns out this little initiative is operating under a theory of action. And it's familiar to the presidents and to the chancellor for how you do your work. We have immense convening power. We have voice. We are a nation. We can get this done with the support of our states and our federal government. We worked hard to create a shared vision, and we listened to every voice. Not everybody won, but I always say, at least they knew they were there for the debate and had some say. We are using a theory of collective impact, that working together is much more efficient and much more effective. This notion of our Institute on Improvement is all about continuous improvement. We're going to get smarter. I think the phrase goes, we want to be the best at getting better. And we are going to sustain this effort over the decade at scale and move the student success dial successfully by 2030. That's our story, Jay. We're sticking to it until somebody tells us we can't do it, and I don't know who that would be. So as a system, welcome to the team. You actually helped craft the team. Your people led this discussion, and you will lead us going forward. The privilege of having 20 minutes to say this to you and not be on a screen and be here in person is more than Rebecca and I could ask. So thank you very, very much. And if there's a comment or a question or advice, Linda, I welcome that, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you. And, I worked in industry for many years, and we often talked about system of systems. And so that's kind of what you're referring to. And the power of that is well understood. And so I think this is a very exciting area. We'll open it up for questions. Presidents or any of the regents have questions for Dr. Zimfer? Chancellor?
Well, I can't help commenting. First of all, Dr. Zimfer inspires us. This is a propitious time, to use a big word, over the last 3 years, and I say this from the vantage point of having had the privilege to sit at that table for a long time before. Never has there been the systemness that we experience here. So we're ripe for the message. We're ripe to join. Many people in this room have heard me quote from that book of 30 years ago, everything I really need to know I learned in kindergarten. Now, I'm totally inappropriate saying that in this room, but if you do recall, and if I may, Robert Fulghum, the author of that book, the last line in the preface, in terms of the principles, is when you go out into the world, it's best to hold hands and stick together. That's what this is all about. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. One of the challenges that I see in go to state policy, that when you think of system, and obviously a system depends a great deal on the public officials who help support, quote, a system. The challenge is that most state officials do not graduate from a system. They graduate from a school within the system. Individual institutions that they have parochial views about are located in a geographical area within the state. Perspective usually is not about a system, it is about an institution in a particular geographical area within a system. We have this need to engage the public officials about a system that may be and perceived inconsistent with the local priorities of the university or college within the system. Have you had challenges with that or addressed that in this form or fashion?
Well, you have an interesting perspective. We met earlier, and the county view of how life gets done and how work gets done informs your view of what people might think of systems. I think we talked today about needing a bit of a new narrative about systems, not being their regulatory face or their administrative and management face, but our service face. And I think the challenge for us is to convince the campus presidents, which I was one of those too, in a system where I was never quite sure what the Wisconsin system was going to do to me in Milwaukee. But I think we have to, the burden is on us to convince public policy makers that we are a value add as a system. And the only way we can convince them is to convince you, the presidents, that this is worth working at together. I will say that we are working with the National Council of State Legislatures and the National Governors Association to work it from that direction as well. If the governor's office, if the legislature sees the value add, they can be our champion too. We can't be the only champion. We have to convince others that our work is worthwhile. And I hate to say this, but like, we're here to help you. That's an old one. But we have to prove it. We have to prove it. And providing services, professional development, training in the kind of improvement science that has swept through the healthcare industry did work and still works for business and industry, but sometimes we don't talk about that. We talk about another social sector interest like healthcare and what we can learn from that sector in our sector. Thank you, Ike.
Any other questions? Bill?
Thank you very much for that very interesting presentation. One thing that occurs to me is trying to generate public support for this whole idea takes me to the point where everybody in this room is keenly aware of what a university system is. But I think in the general community, in the local communities in particular, people don't understand that there's a system. They understand there's a university, multiple universities, but when you talk about a system, they look at you with a blank stare because they don't understand that. How do you get beyond that issue? And is it an issue?
Well, I think it continues to be an issue. Like I said, I really think we need some image adjustment. And that comes from how people talk about us also, how you talk about us. And I'm no stranger to the skepticism of my colleagues on what an organization like a system can do for you, and might even have been guilty in my day of bemoaning what the system was doing on just a rare occasion or two. So I think we need some public opinion. We need other supporters than ourselves, as I said. But I will tell you, to get public support and public money, which I will not be shy, we would like some public money from the states, but most importantly from the federal government. We spend a lot of time saying, particularly to the Department of Education, we are the engine for Build Back Better. We are the engine for recovery, for infrastructure. Use us in a way where we can bring to bear more campuses, 450 campus members of this organization. We can do this. So we are starting with philanthropic support, Bill. We set a goal of $5 million over these first 2 years. I think we'll exceed that. Good luck, Rebecca. We're really close. And we think that will translate into public support when Lumina and Gates and Kresge and I could name 20 that we are actively engaged with. They will carry a message to public policy makers. But it may all boil down to communication, Bill. We have to do a much, much better job. We have to show the passion of our work, which is what Jay does every day. Talk about the reality on the ground of what the student experience is. We'll look to our student regents to keep us honest in that regard and truthful, and to admit we need to get better. I think for people to hear that universities acknowledge that we can be better is a sort of humbling perspective, because we're really darn good, but we can get better. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time, which I'm grateful for
Well,
and appreciate.
Any other questions for Dr. Zimfer? Any of the presidents? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam
I
Chair.
especially like the big rethink.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down and I'll be using
I
it
stole it
soon.
we stole it from somebody, so you may have it.
Yeah.
We did that, we're moving on. Thank you both very, very much. Thank you all.
Now Chancellor Perman will give us the Chancellor's report.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I join you in welcoming our new board members, and I thank them for their willingness to serve the students and our state of Maryland. I want to add my congratulations to Regent Atman, our new vice chair. I know we're going to continue to benefit from your leadership. And my thanks as well to my friend and colleague, Dr. Nancy Zimfer, for her insights into how systems can better leverage their power to advance higher ed's central goals. NASH's important inquiry and consensus building in this area is going to continue to guide our work, and we will guide NASH's work. And I thank President Pines and the University of Maryland College Park for hosting our meeting today. We've heard from President Pines today about some of the amazing things that are happening here. But let me brag on our flagship just a little more. You heard Dr. Pines talk about the NSF placing College Park at the highest point in terms of black undergraduates who later earn a doctoral degree. Highest ranked non-HBCU on the list. It's an extraordinary achievement for everybody that works at College Park. And I need to add that UMBC is 12 on that same list. And I will point out that Morgan State, not a part of our system, is number 16. And what's the pride in that? The fact that 3 Maryland public universities make the top 20 in a terribly important metric is a distinction to our state and higher education in our state. Earlier this summer, with George Mason University, College Park formed a consortium of DC area colleges focused on stemming gun violence through research-based recommendations. President Pines at that time said that he was launching this effort because universities serve as a source of change, as a source of progress. Because, Darrell said, we believe in science and data in making recommendations. And perhaps most compellingly, because gun violence is a public health crisis. Full stop. Thank you for the leadership. This summer also saw College Park initiate a strategic partnership with Microsoft focused on diversifying the fields of robotics and autonomy, intended to counter a downturn in diversity among incoming students, which will threaten our innovation capacity in this and other areas. So again, congratulations to the entire College Park family on these efforts and more. I want to join Chair Gooden and all of you in congratulating the USM STEM Award, Staff Award winners who we honored this morning. These women, and I hope you noticed, these women embody the excellence of our system, and I'm so grateful for their work. More congratulations are due to our new Elkins professors around the system that the Regents choose to distinguish with awards. And I need to call them out. Dr. Paz Gallup at Towson, whose work examines the legal and cultural factors that affect the healthcare experiences of transgender and non-binary Marylanders, which in turn leads to significant health disparities in those communities. Dr. Heather Congdon, a colleague of mine from UMB, who will work with her Elkins professorship at the Kirwan Center on a digital badging initiative to scale interprofessional education strategies that help strengthen Maryland's healthcare workforce, teaching our healthcare providers of the future how to work in a team. Dr. Taryn Cook-Bell from Bowie State, who will establish the W.E.B. Du Bois Center for the study of the Black experience to advance research in African, African American, and African diaspora studies. And finally, Dr. Barbara Resnick from UMB, who will help develop a model for implementing national guidelines on pain management, particularly for residents of long-term care facilities. And these guidelines will in turn improve the assessment of pain, its diagnosis, and most importantly, pain relief. So congratulations to the 4 Elkins professors. I want to welcome new members of my leadership team. This month, Dr. Michelle Masucci joined the USM as Vice Chancellor for Research and Economic Development, replacing the position previously held by Vice Chancellor Tom Sadowski. Dr. Masucci comes to us, and there she is standing at the wall, from Temple University, where she was Vice President for Research, and where she oversaw the 7th fastest growing R&D enterprise in United States higher education. Our strategic plan emphasizes the strengthening of our research power and deploying that power in 2 ways. One, solving the greatest challenges of our time. And secondly, to ensure Maryland's prosperity and economic growth. Can't imagine a better leader to guide us. Welcome, Michelle. I also want to welcome somebody who needs no introduction but has a new position, or an enhanced position, our own Dave Mosca. He is our Vice Chancellor for Accountability going forward. Dave has long served as Director of Internal Audit, and he still does. But his new seat at the leadership table reminds us, and this is a principal reason for my doing this, that with every decision, every action, as a system, we owe our constituents good faith and transparency. And we want top oversight for that. So I thank Dave for his oversight. And of course, we have new leaders across the system. Dr. Pines acknowledged them. I want to do as well. In a recent interview, Salisbury's new leader, Dr. Lynn Lepre, said she wanted to see SU recognized not as a hidden gem, but simply a gem. And we all couldn't agree more, so welcome, Lynn. And meanwhile, before Dr. Valerie Shears Ashby finished her first month, UMBC was already being profiled in U.S. News and World Report as an oasis of opportunity and support for female STEM scholars. That's a good way to start. So welcome to you, Valerie. Dr. Larry Wheel has been named the interim executive director of the USM at Hagerstown following the retirement of Mark Halsey. Larry, you're here? Yes. I know Dr. Wheel is committed to our colleague Mark's legacy of expanding education access across the region and serving his community of learners, and in time a national search for Mark's successor will be conducted. We hope to launch that this fall. And then I'd like to recognize Dr. Anupam Joshi, who is chair of the Computer Science and Electrical Engineering Department at UMBC. He is one of 46 U.S. scholars to be named a Fellow of the American Council of Education. Dr. Pines has one of the others, which I'll let you call out whenever you want. He'll spend, Dr. Joshi's going to spend his fellowship shadowing me and UMB President Gerald. Those of us who have the privilege of having future leaders shadow us always get more than we give, at least in my experience. You know, Dr. Pines mentioned U.S. News and World Report and the rankings, the undergraduate rankings. And I think he said something like this too. You know, we readily acknowledge that we do not measure our worth by slavishness to the rankings because they don't fully represent or reflect our excellence. But it is nice when they endorse what we do. U.S. News, I'm going to add a few more, Daryl. U.S. News ranked College Park 19th among all U.S. public universities, top 20. 22nd in undergrad engineering programs. Lots of programs making the top 10. UMBC was ranked 9th by U.S. News for undergraduate teaching, 10th for most innovative school. UMGC, 16th spot for innovative schools. UMB, the School of Nursing's BSN program, ranked 9th in the nation, 3rd among publics. Among regional public universities in the North, Frostburg, top 40, U-Ball, top 30, Salisbury, top 20, Towson, top 10. In HBCU rankings, all 3 of our historically black institutions made the U.S. top 40, and UMES and Bowie State broke the top 20. Forbes top colleges list. That list measures affordability, quality, graduation success, and earnings post-graduation. Magazine gave College Park top 40 rankings, also recognized UMBC, Towson, Salisbury, U-Balt. Daryl mentioned the Princeton Review. It's important to note that the Princeton Review is based on what the students have to say. And that publication has 3 system schools among its best: Salisbury, UMBC, College Park. Washington Monthly measures social mobility, public service, and research. In that publication includes every eligible USM school in its best value list for the Northeast. And in a series of rankings from the Military Times, UMGC won the #1 spot for top online colleges, #4 for top public colleges, #5 for top colleges overall. These are the publication's best for vets ranking. And I know they mean, no pun intended, the world to UMGC. So congratulations, Greg. Last one, Regents, I promise. A new report from the National Academy of Inventors ranks our very own university system 20th in the world for patents awarded in 2021. Among public institutions, we're number 10. These are the highest rankings the system has ever earned in this category. Taken together, the system's people converted their ideas and innovations into 98 patents last year. College Park led the way with 65. Congratulations to everybody that's got faculty doing this kind of work and staff doing this kind of work. You know, higher ed's reputation for slowing down in the summer is simply belied by the news coming out of our universities. Let me comment on how the schools are expanding their physical and academic footprints. Here's a project that showcases both. With support from the Maryland Energy Administration, Frostburg is going to install a clean energy microgrid on campus. And the microgrid is going to power a community emergency shelter, mitigate the impact of power outages, and meet Frostburg's sustainability goals. Plus, working with the area's two-year colleges, Frostburg is going to develop a renewable energy training certificate program. This semester, UMGC took its first step into the metaverse. With VR headsets, students are attending class on a virtual campus, modeled after UMGC's actual one. Back here on Earth, UMGC has forged alliances with community colleges, not just in the state, but in Delaware, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Kentucky, Illinois, Colorado, to help students earn a four-year degree as quickly and affordably as possible. UBalt has issued a request for proposals as it moves forward with campus expansion, converting a former postal facility into a student-centered development that will grow UBalt's footprint by some 2.5 acres while enriching what's now becoming a more thriving city center. UBalt also established an accelerated pathway for students at the multi-campus Community College of Baltimore County, providing them dual admission status, giving them access to UBalt's academic advising. Thank you. Bowie State is growing its cyber and analytics portfolio, offering students new undergrad programs in cyber operations engineering, data science, and software engineering. And Frostburg is expanding its nursing program with a new BSN and an accelerated pathway for licensed practical nurses to earn the BSN. And with its industry and government partners, Dr. Anderson, UMES is developing an FAA certified curriculum in aviation maintenance. So we salute UMES for its leadership in aviation sciences. And I hope you appreciate the fact that so much of this, you know, we always talk about, are they going to be able to get a job? Does it lead to a job? You just need to hear the titles of these programs. They're going to get a job. Gifts and grants. College Park this week announced a $25 million commitment from alumnus Stanley Zupnick that will seed a new building for Clark School students. His named building will be the new home of civil and environmental engineering. It'll house mechanical engineering, the Quantum Technology Center, and the Maryland Transportation Institute. Salisbury's 3-year We Are SU campaign came to an end this summer, surpassing its $75 million goal and becoming the most successful campaign in SU history. Lynn, you're on your way. As part of a U.S. Department of Education program to diversify the teacher workforce, Coppin and Frostburg One, funding to recruit, develop, and retain a strong, diverse teacher corps. This is something we can all be very proud of. Both schools earned the maximum reviewer points possible on their applications, a testament to their track record in teacher diversity. Those awards are going to net to the institution millions of dollars for each school over several years. Coppin was one of only 3 HBCUs in the country to receive funding. So well done, Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Nowacek, and Provost is here, I see, so thank you. UMCES is one of 5 HBCUs sharing $1 million in health innovation and research grants from the Propel Center. That's a global HBCU technology and learning hub. I think I got that right. Oh, I said UMCES, I'm sorry. UMES. We'll take the money. Yeah, I know. We'll negotiate. You know, I can't get it perfect. Sorry. UMBC has won $10 million from the NSF to grow the number of postdocs of color in STEM. UMBC will help scale the USM's incredibly successful Grow Your Own approach to faculty diversity, working with 3 distinguished U.S. higher ed systems beyond us, the University of Texas, Texas A&M system, and the UNC system. This is a terrific effort which I've been briefed on in detail, and we need to share more about this to tackle a problem that we all know exists, plain and simple underrepresentation of people of color in the professoriate. So very important work, Valerie, thank you. Bowie State, one of 7 HBCUs selected for the inaugural cohort of the HBCU Pre-Accelerator Program, which will help BSU students grow as innovators and access resources needed to build sustainable businesses. And for some individual honors, last week, the world's premier geosciences organization, the American Geophysical Union, recognized scholars across the globe for advancing discovery and solutions in earth and space sciences. 3 of the scholars recognized call USM institutions home. Jing Wei of College Park, Lorraine Reamer of UMBC, and Xin Yang of UMCES. So congratulations to those distinguished scientists. Finally, our institutions have distinguished themselves through deep engagement with their communities, this commitment to social, environmental, and economic inclusion and justice. I noted toward the top of my comments College Park's new effort to address gun violence. Well, last week, UMB announced its Center for Violence Prevention. That was launched with a $2 million gift from Betsy Sherman and the Sherman Family Foundation, and the center at UMB is going to coordinate the research and clinical field activities of the schools of medicine, law, and social work, together with the R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center, where sadly so many victims of gun violence end up. So working together, those schools will explore the causes of violence, advocate for anti-violence programs and policies. Thank you, Bruce. Insight into Diversity, a magazine, provided or profiled Towson's remarkable success in closing the graduation gap. At Towson, Black students graduate at a rate higher than the overall completion rate, and there's no difference in the grad rates of white and Black students. The insight piece holds TU up as a model, highlighting the programs that enable the success. Congratulations, Kim, to you and your colleagues. I would add, related to Towson, that its entrepreneurship and innovation hub, which they've dubbed the Startup, STAR, big T, big U, get it, P, was named one of North America's top university-based economic development initiatives. It's a finalist for the University Economic Development Association Award, and this is fairly new, and here they are a finalist for deploying talent, innovation, and place in a way that enriches the community. And in a first-of-its-kind program, Coppin placed students and recent graduates into 10-week paid internships with the Baltimore City Police Department this summer, intended to strengthen mutual trust between law enforcement agencies and the communities they police. Last month, the governor marked a major milestone. Listen to this, 10 billion oysters planted in the Chesapeake Bay. 10 billion, all of them, born and raised at Umsey's Horn Point. Very prolific there. But all kidding aside, it's a key tool in restoring Bay health. So congratulations. And Bowie State had a special screening last week for 2 PBS documentaries that it's sponsoring. It's the first HBCU to do so. The films explore the lives and legacies of 2 iconic Marylanders, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. And here's a plug. I hope you'll tune in to MPT on October 4th and October 11th for these beautiful pieces of storytelling. The USM at Southern Maryland hosted a free summer program at its SMART building, which you're all going to see in November, connecting local high school students interested in STEM with classroom and experiential learning in engineering and math. Thank you, Eileen. And the universities at Shady Grove joined with Montgomery County Public Schools and Montgomery College to launch the Talent Ready program to grow 4-year degree completion and professional success among students underrepresented in IT courses and careers. Thank you, Academian. And on that note, I need to celebrate the system's own Maryland Center for Computing Education. At this month's CS EdCon, a global computing conference, Maryland will be singled out for making computer science available to nearly every high school student in the state. We enabled that. Only 3 states can boast that more than 9 in 10 of their high schools offer computing courses. Maryland leads them all. It's a tribute to the work of MCEE, our Office of Academic and Student Affairs, and I thank Dr. Boffman for her leadership together with her whole team. Now to close out, and I know I've labored on perhaps too long, but there's so much to talk about. To close out, I don't know whether many of you saw that first pitch that President Jenkins threw out at the O's game a couple of weeks ago. I'm here to tell you it was pretty impressive. Looked like a fastball strike. Too bad higher ed's working out so well for you. Because he's got an arm. And jokes aside, it was for a great cause. Coppin showed up in force. The Coppin State University family for Camden Yards HBCU night, where $5 from every ticket went to support our region's historically Black institutions. So that's one heck of a pitch. Well done, Anthony. Madam Chair, I'm done.
Are there any questions for the Chancellor? Bill?
I have just a point of memory. Anthony, I just want to let you know that there's a history here. Dr. Perman also threw out a pitch at an O's game, and it was on the
I think mine was better than his, but
and it was on the front page of the sports section in the Baltimore Sun. So I called the Baltimore Sun and got a glossy picture and framed it. The next thing I knew, it was on his conference table.
it's in my office. I've got the proof.
All right, thank you. Now we'll start with our report of the councils, and we'll start with the Council of University System Presidents, and President Smoke is going to deliver the report.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Regents, Chancellor. I'm pinch hitting for our distinguished chair, Dr. Bro, who was called away to give a speech out of town. Our report is very short. We've met twice on August 8th and September 12th. The presentation that we received on August 8th was from a group from College Park talking about student activism. They discussed issues about the academic and non-academic and public safety matters, and really helped us a great deal in starting the academic year on the right foot. And then on September 12th, we had a presentation from Regent Bill Wood on the progress report on potential prison education program. So our report has been submitted. I just wanted to mention, Madam Chair, that our efforts in collaboration in the university, the various system institutions, sometimes does meet bumps in the road. I accepted an invitation from Dr. Pines to come down to College Park to join them at the first home football game this year. And, you know, with great pride, I came down. I wore my University of Baltimore shirt that had a big B on it, and I was wondering exactly why people looked at me so skeptically as I walked around, and I completely forgot that they were playing the University of Buffalo. So I was embraced by a different alumni association. That is our report.
Question is, will you be invited back? All right, our next report is the University System of Maryland Student Council, and this is by Mr. Siddiqui.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Gooden, Board of Regents, and esteemed colleagues. My name is Arslan Siddiqui, and I am an undergraduate student here at the University of Maryland, College Park, studying bioengineering, and I am a science diplomacy and foreign policy fellow here as well. And, you know, we are throwing rankings around, so if I may, Dr. Pines, I think recently UMD was ranked as number 9 for bioengineering. So, you know, we're doing really well in that field here as well. It is a great honor for me to serve as the USM Student Council President for this term. If I may take a moment, I would also like to introduce the Vice President of Undergraduate Affairs, Vinavi Gambier, who is also from University of Maryland, College Park, and the Vice President of Graduate Affairs, Emily B. Madison, who is a doctoral student in Salisbury University's Literacy Studies doctoral program. Since our term started in July, the executive team and I have been busy with the GSA and SGA, meeting with the SGA and GSA presidents from our institutions. And earlier this week on Sunday, we had our first USMSC general body meeting. We invited Dorian Rogers from NAACP to lead a discussion with the representatives on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how our campuses can play a role in making sure that our students feel as inclusive as possible. The executive team and I also had an opportunity to meet with the representatives in smaller groups in weeks prior, and the general consensus is that students, feel that they're getting in the groove of things. Campuses are, things are starting to gear up on campuses, and many clubs and organizations are starting to be active if they were inactive in years prior. So, as the USMSC, we have a few goals for this upcoming year. The first one is the Financial Wellness Orientation Program. So mental health is something that we discussed a lot about last year, and of course it still remains to be an issue. But one thing that I and the exec team want to work on is understand how we can mitigate the root causes of mental health. And one of the biggest causes of anxiety and depression in college students, and frankly, even among some adults, is money. So we want to introduce the idea of having a financial wellness or financial literacy training that students take as they're onboarding to the university, sort of similar to the drug and alcohol abuse and academic integrity orientation programs that many students take as they're onboarding to the university. And so we've been browsing to see what's already out there, what other universities use, and what would be some good topics for us to include. And College Park has a few really good personal finance and financial wellness programs that we think could possibly be used across the system in other universities here. The second thing is Election Day holiday. As you all know, USM has one of the most civically engaged student populations anywhere in the country. And for that reason, we firmly believe that we should encourage our students and our faculty and staff to continue to be active in our election process. Giving students, faculty, and staff off is an initiative that we would like to partner with the system faculty and system council, as well as the VPSAs and the provosts this coming year. The USMSC Awards is another initiative that we want to do, and that for the reason that we want to recognize the wonderful talent that the students bring to our system. We feel that it is very important that their efforts and achievements don't go unheard. That is why we will hopefully be able to introduce for the first time in USMSC history a series of awards that acknowledge and appreciate students who lead in areas such as innovation and creativity, civic engagement, leadership, community service, and others. And lastly, we have the USMSC Mental Health Awareness Campaign. As I've mentioned earlier, mental health is a dominating issue in all of our campuses. And this year, we will continue on last year's project to have a system-wide singular virtual day event where we will discuss methods of dealing with anxiety and depression. As an example, there will be yoga masterclasses and deep breathing and meditation exercises that anyone from the system would be able to partake in. So those are the goals that we have for this year, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them now. Thank you so much.
Questions?
If I could make a comment, Arsalan, this morning we honored staff, and you're mentioning this intention to honor students. I don't know how fleshed out your idea is, but we would be glad to work with you to support that.
Thank you so much, yeah.
We certainly are interested in recognizing our outstanding students.
Thank you so much, yes.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you for your first report. We look forward to hearing from you in the coming months.
Thank you so much.
Our next report is the Council of University System Faculty, delivered by Dr. Brewer.
Hi, my name is Holly Brewer. I'm a historian of early modern justice, and I teach here in the history department at the University of Maryland, College Park. And I'm honored to be here. And I want to say that I want you to understand something really important about me, which will help you understand the comments that follow. I'm a scholar and a teacher, and I've been so for 25 years. And I've mostly avoided administrative responsibilities. It doesn't mean that I haven't stepped up when I needed to. I've, chaired committees, I've done what I need to do, but I've never volunteered to move up in university administration. I won a Guggenheim Award for my scholarship. I won the only book prize awarded by the American Association of Law Schools for my first book. I have 5 graduate students. I love my teaching, but I'm spending my time this year, my valuable time, volunteering to be the chair of the Council of University System Faculty, because I think there's something that's kind of broken within the USM system. And the problem is that everything is structured in such a top-down way. So all of the, all of the councils from the faculty, of the students, of other things, are quote unquote advisory only. And, you know, responsible leaders listen to that advice and absorb it. But there have been leaders over the past decade at UMC College Park who did not, in fact, listen or even consult with many of those councils, often on really important decisions. And as a scholar of the 17th and 18th century who works on the rise of democracy, I will say that that system of advisory only is what left Charles I, King of England, to kind of lose his head because he ignored the advice. He thought all the responsibility should be in him. And what I'd like to see, even if it's only just a little bit, is a few more checks and balances within the system, a little bit more accountability. For example, vis-a-vis former President Lowe's decision to spend what turned out to be something like $100 million on renovating a stadium that was mostly for purposes of training the football team, while in my department, for example, we lost 10 faculty in fields that cover really important areas of world history. And this without, in fact, a lot of consultation. It's been kind of sobering watching a lot of things happen. So, and I want to point out that at this level, I'm your only voice. And I am a volunteer. There isn't actually really a USM VP for faculty affairs. And there's some structural issues that I think we need to be paying attention to. So so I lay this out here as what I'm doing, and this has shaped the 2 meetings we have had so far, these kinds of concerns, with the Executive Committee of the Council of University System Faculty. Again, all of us volunteers. So far, the general body meeting doesn't meet until next week, but we've created a strategic plan. And at the top of that is considering practical ways within our control of increasing faculty governance. And the most important one is within our system bylaws, increasing our communication with faculty senates so that both we have more ability to gather data from them and they can share their concerns and also what we are doing with their universities. So last year, for example, it was imperfect, but we spent months doing a COVID committee report where we talked about the stress that faculty were under, how we wanted to be consulted a little bit in decision making, and how we wanted advance notice about changes in policies. And it was an imperfect report, but it didn't get circulated very well, and it certainly didn't get applied from what I can tell at the system universities. How do we increase communication about things like that? How can we improve faculty morale and mental health? And one of the options is going to have to be, unless there's some sort of better systematic change, is looking again at collective bargaining. In 2001, the state legislature abolished collective bargaining for most employees in the USM system, except for some members of staff. In 2010, that was reconsidered comprehensively by the legislature. There was actually a committee of the councils of university system staff, faculty, and students that made recommendations and ended up saying they supported getting rid of the ban on collective bargaining, but if there was a good alternative, that might be viable. But it looks like, at least in terms of graduate students and potentially in terms of faculty, that maybe this is a viable, an important thing to be reconsidering. So we're going to be working with the Council on University System staff and students to reconsider that. I'm going to just touch on a few more priority items for us. Libraries. They're central to sharing knowledge on all our campuses, but are facing crises. Here at UMD College Park, the library budget has not increased in the last 10 years. Their voice, too, it's really hard to be heard on the system level. But meanwhile, the price that we pay to for-profit companies that own the copyright on journals is skyrocketing. And it means the library's budget is almost consumed with that. So books in the humanities, in a lot of fields, are not being purchased. Databases that we need access to continue being an R1 university, we're not getting. And I'm just talking about one campus. This is going on across the campuses. President Biden last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess, talked about an open access initiative, how our university research should be open access and accessible. But there are huge problems surrounding this, and we need to take the role of the libraries more seriously, and we as faculty recognize how crucial they are. And just a couple more quick issues. One of the things we want to look at is state laws that maybe need to be reconsidered. You might or might not be aware, but within the USM system, almost all furniture is supposed to be bought from the from the Maryland State Prison System, and is made by prisoners. And we would like to have some discussion on whether that should be reconsidered. And finally, in terms of the USM system, I have been reading, with my historian's hat on, tons of minutes for the last 5 years. I've been reading the whole arc of the structure of the system. And I would like to encourage us to think less about branding, for example, for the University of Maryland, and more about the common good. So there's a fund for projects that take university innovations private. But what about a fund that encourages university innovations that help the common good, that enable access to crucial innovations, to tools and information resources, for example, to open access information? That isn't being promoted as much as I think it should be. Last year, we lost 5,500 teachers in the state of Maryland. What are we doing within the USM system to help encourage replacing those many losses across the entire state, across the country? So in closing, I'd just like to say, how can we include common good and concerns about democracy and hearing everybody's voices more fully within the USM system? Thank you.
Are there any questions for Dr. Brewer? No problem.
Madam Chair, I had one.
Yes, Bob.
Thank you for that presentation. I share your concern about the loss of teachers in our state. And what do you think we need to do at a high level to turn that around? What are some ideas on how we can close that gap? Because I'm very concerned about the loss of teachers in the state, as you are.
I think incentivizing, for example, one-year master credentialing programs, so that, for example, we have years of history BAs who might be looking for jobs. We could use our alumni list to reach out and figure out how to get them enrolled in such programs. Literally giving scholarships to support that, telling people that it matters, and actually doing this kind of thing at all levels. And the other, of course, huge losses are in healthcare. And we have been making some. I was chair of the legislative committee for Council of University System Faculty last year, and ended up seeing a lot of legislative initiatives, and there's some efforts to support nursing. But I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but we could have another medical school in the state. That's a nationwide need. So I'm just trying to say, how can we prioritize the public good a little bit more in the entire system?
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Brewer? Seeing none, thank you for your report.
Thank you so much for listening to me.
The next report is the Council of University System Staff, and Dr. Patricio will present that.
Thank you, Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Board of Regents, and the University Presidents. I really appreciate you having me today. I have a brief update for you today. From the report I wrote that is shared with you today, I wanted to update you that we have fully rounded out our executive board. So my name, as I said, is Kalia Patricio. I am from the University of Maryland College Park, rounding out the tri-councils with a pretty strong College Park showing. We also have on our executive committee staff from University of Maryland Baltimore, Towson, Bowie State, UMBC, Coppin, and UMGC. We're really excited to start this year. We have our first real meeting on Tuesday next week, where we will be setting our agenda and our priorities. Things that we've carried over from past years include issues of staff support, so thinking of staff ombuds and faculty staff assistance programs, benefits issues, issues of pay, and issues of consistency across the system when it comes to treating campuses like 24-hour operations as they are, background checks, and also policy review. There are many of us that feel it would be really beneficial for staff to be more involved in the annual policy reviews as people on the ground who try to implement those. The final thing that I would like to say is thank you so much for the Board of Regents awards for system staff. We had a lovely ceremony this morning. I wanted to let everyone know that the Board of Regents packet will be coming out next week, so all the presidents will be getting a copy of that as well as all the staff senates. One thing I really want to ask of you is that we have historically had a lot of difficulty recruiting non-exempt staff for Board of Regents nominations. These are often staff without computer workstations and therefore not access to the technology that is required to write these packets. There are very strict guidelines around these nomination processes, if you don't know, and it is a barrier to these staff being nominated. So I'm really asking the presidents if you can help us get the word out, especially to our non-exempt staff, and really increase that pool of wonderful people that we know are on our campus and doing really great work. So that is my report for you. Thank you.
I want to thank you for your report, but also for sharing your newsletter. It was informative for some of the regents as well. Any questions for Dr. Patricio? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now move to the public comment, and Ms. Wilkerson will moderate the public session. Ms. Wilkerson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Each regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Regents will include a period for public comment. In accordance with the guidelines for public comment, which are posted on the USM website, the agenda includes 15 minutes set aside for this purpose. Each recognized speaker has 3 minutes to address the board. Requests for public comments should be submitted 48 hours before the meeting, and comments should pertain to items on the agenda. We have 2 speakers for public comment today. The first speaker is Towson University Professor Gorman, who has requested time to speak related to on a topic related to the Towson University mission. So, Professor Gorman, you have 3 minutes.
Morning, Chair Gooden and the board. My name is Brian Gorman. I'm an associate professor at Towson University. I've been with the faculty since 2006, and I thank you for this opportunity to provide a brief comment today. I have one basic point as it relates to our public trust and the mission. I, with other faculty at Towson, do take pride in advancing to R2 status, and indeed the mission statement before you today. I asked to speak to you, however, due to operational linkage of a particular morality movement that's in higher education that is linked to the new mission in very discrete ways, which is already becoming evident in its operational capacity in its very early stages. This calls for a sense of moral activism, and we have some language in the mission: action as leaders for the public good, faculty serve as community leaders, extending talents beyond campus. So this language can, of course, be fine on a surface level. However, its operationalization is where the concern arises. So, for instance, it's operationalized right now through encouraging all faculty to engage in some kind of moral leadership in the community. So my point with that is very simple, to be mindful of licensure requirements in terms of protection of the community. That's my basics, very simple point here. And it's related to some history because this very well-meaning morality movement in higher education has been around for some time. And the last time that they engaged in an attempt to, encourage faculty to engage with the community without licensure, specifically, that has led to a very harmful program. And that is at Syracuse University, and it's got a notorious history related to that. So basically, the point is very simple, one that we all know. Licensure relates to protection for the community, and there is a history where it's gone, to a problematic area. And my hope is very simple, that we just be mindful of that standard requirement that, which this board would, of course, stand for in terms of representing the trust of this institution for the public. So that concludes my comments today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gorman. Our next speaker will be Dion Williams, who will speak on behalf of AFSCME. Is Dion here?
Hello, I'm Dion Williams, and I've worked at the University of Maryland, College Park for 17 years. I'm also a shop steward with AFSCME Local 1072. For decades, the University System of Maryland has divided our members, going out of their way to cheapen or devalue our work by not bargaining or not funding raises for years. They have been contracting out the work of state employees and hiring thousands of contingent employees who have no rights or have far less benefits or no benefits, such as health care and retirement. This act has been done in the name of cost saving for the University System of Maryland. Now, I lobbied the General Assembly to pass the consolidated bargaining bill so that my coworkers across the system and I could bargain with you, the Regents, for fair pay, for benefits, and for basic employee rights. Now, as we move forward, we need you to show up. We need you to hear us and bargain. You ultimately decide on our contracts, and you should be there. We want you at the bargaining table. Earlier, we attempted to circulate a pledge to you to join us at the bargaining table, but I want to ask you directly. Will you join us? Will you talk to us and bargain with us? Can I get you to commit to that today, to join us at the bargaining table? Well, that's a shame. You are supposed to be the leaders. You are the decision makers. And you're not willing, not one of you is willing to talk with us, to talk with your rank and file workers and negotiate. It's disappointing. We need you to do better. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. That concludes public comment.
All right. I want to thank those individuals who took the time to share their thoughts with the board. We certainly appreciate your input. And now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Decisions regarding which items to include on the consent agenda were made by me and the committee chairs. However, any regent may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for separate review and discussion. Before I move approval of the consent agenda, I ask if there are any items that any region would like removed from the consent agenda for separate review and discussion? Seeing none, I move approval of all of the items on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. The next order of business are the committee meetings, and we have 3 items in the committee of the whole. First, Regent Gordine will present an action item regarding Towson University's revised mission statement. Next, Regent Wood will present a progress report on the potential of a USM prison education program. And the third item is a naming request from the University of Maryland College Park and will be presented by Regent Breslin. So let's start with Regent Gordine.
Thank you, Chair Good, and good morning, everyone. We have an exciting item on the agenda today. We've asked that the approval of a new mission statement for Towson University be considered today for several reasons. Normally, we would usually be in the year in which all university mission statements would be reviewed, but the state plan for post-secondary education was delayed in being approved. Therefore, our new university's mission statements will not be due for many months. The date is to be determined. However, Towson University is anxious to gain approval to deliver research doctoral degrees, which means Board of Regents' review of the expanded mission statement that is before you. Towson has been granting professional doctorates for many years. Currently, they have 4 professional doctorate programs, 26 Master of Science degree programs, 11 Master of Arts programs, 7 master's programs in education, and many post-baccalaureate certificate programs, all of which demonstrate that the faculty are committed to research and graduate education in many disciplines. Towson has grown significantly in size and stature in the last several years. There are new physical structures and academic infrastructure that support this enhancement in academic scope and faculty engagement. It's timely and appropriate for Towson University to make the move to R2 status, and the first requirement is for the Board of Regents to approve the enhanced mission statement. Now, I will turn to Provost Melanie Perot to provide context, and she and President Chancellor will be available for questions.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Gooden, Regent Gordine, and Chancellor Perman, and the rest of the Board of Regents for the opportunity to present the updated mission statement for Towson University, reflecting our university's steady growth in research and its exciting future in our new 10-year strategic plan. And I have to say that thank you, Chancellor Perman, for setting up the importance of research. This is the perfect Board of Regents meeting to bring this forward, so thank you. Our increased focus on research is part of the natural evolution of Towson University since its origins in 1866 as a state normal school to the university of 20,000 students that it is today. In addition, our plan supports USM's strategic plan, especially Priority 3, Workforce and Economic Development, and Priority 4, Research. TU's strategic plan developed over 18 months of a highly collaborative process involving multiple listening sessions, town halls, and focus groups comprised of faculty, students, and staff. All shared governance groups endorsed the plan in its final draft, including the Academic Senate unanimously. TU has many faculty already engaged in research of the highest caliber, with areas of excellence in cybersecurity, autism, trauma studies, and forensic science, just to name a few. And with the completion of our state-of-the-art science building, a new cyber center, and the ongoing construction of our health professions building, we have the facilities to increase research for undergraduate and graduate students and our faculty. And the university has committed significant resources to support and grow research on the campus as part of our overall goal to be classified as an R2 institution. And this change to be able to offer PhD programs is an important part of our strategy, as Regent Gordine has noted. And our new vision and new mission statements anticipate being able to offer these programs. We currently offer doctoral programs in audiology, information technology, instructional technology, occupational science, and occupational therapy. And the ability to offer PhD programs will allow TU to better serve its students and the state of Maryland, and will further attract faculty highly engaged in research. President Pines today has done an excellent job demonstrating how investment in research can have a significant impact on the state, and TU stands ready to do its part. Although I don't think we're going to get Larry David to be our spokesperson, we may be able to tee up Amy Schumer. We'll work on that. None of this, of course, comes at the expense of our continued commitment to excellence in teaching in the undergraduate and graduate classrooms, as you can also see reflected in the mission and values statements. Thank you for your consideration.
Are there any questions?
I have one. What is the current classification of Towson, and how many different classifications are there across the spectrum?
So we are currently classified as a master's comprehensive university. Where we want to go is the R2, and that's essentially College Park and high engaged research universities are called R1s. The R2 is or their highest. What is it? Very high. Very high. High is R2, and then there's the third category called the doctoral professional universities. It's a DPU, and so those are the stages right above where we are right now. So what we would anticipate being able to do is move quickly into the R2 status. These are the Carnegie classifies every 3 years, so it's on a new cycle every 3 years.
Thank you.
And I just want to add my support for this, of course, and I think the Provost has done a great job talking about how inclusive the discussion has been around doing this and how it's a natural evolution. We were pleased. We had our first hooding ceremony this last spring at commencement, and we had 55 doctoral students receive their degrees across these programs. So we're well prepared, and the investment that's been supported by the Board of Regents and our infrastructure well prepares us with facilities to be able to carry out this action.
So, Madam Chair and fellow regents, I apologize. Yes, President.
So I want to support Melanie and Kim from Towson. And let me tell you why this is important in terms of a decision. As Melanie just mentioned, they changed the timelines. The timelines used to be every 6 years. So now Towson and any other institution that wants to be an R2 institution is getting in the queue for a 3-year decision cycle instead of a 6-year decision cycle. So it's possible, if approved, that Towson could be R2 but within 3 years, much faster than the normal cycles from the previous classification periods of review. Thank you.
No, I was only going to contribute to definitions here. Might point out that our new Vice Chancellor, Masucci, has a lot of experience in these matters. We're going to start working in helping in a process that's going to modernize these classifications further. But we clearly support what Towson wants to be.
Dr. Anderson?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to also speak and support this move by Towson as well. As you know, UMES moved to an R2 status a number of years ago. It has really helped us with our infrastructure from a research standpoint. It allows us to get funding from federal that we were not able to get before, and that has really enhanced our footprint. Most of you also know that we're working with the R1s with our sister school, College Park, to move from R2 now to R1 status, and we're moving in that particular direction. So this allows you to really not only grow your enrollment in the area of doctoral programs, but as I said, it allows you to be able to get the research funds that you could not get before. And with the partnership that we're doing with College Park and some others, we see ourselves moving. And so we definitely support TU coming along to help us in this space, because then we can partner with them as well.
Denise, since we have a number of new regents, it might be good for one of our educational forums to have the classifications explained and what the benefits are moving from one classification level to another.
We have Dr. Masucci on the retreat
Okay.
to talk about research, and we can
Add that.
add that.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioner, back over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, fellow regents. As you've heard, Towson University has both the necessary infrastructure and the enthusiasm to make this move to be a Carnegie R2 institution. I believe Towson is ready, and so I move that the Board of Regents approve the expanded mission statement of Towson University.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
The next item is informational, and I'll turn it over to Regent Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. I'm going to provide a 10-minute interim progress report on the potential for a USM prison education program to be teed up for a further full and comprehensive discussion at our next full board meeting on November the 11th.
Excuse me, Regional. Could you go to the podium so that the live stream captures it?
Sure. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. So Chancellor Perman and the presidents heard this report last Monday, so my apologies for you having to listen to it twice. And I want to point out that Regent Hurd joined us in this proposal based upon his interest, his past service as United States Attorney for the state of Maryland, and his long-standing professional relationship with the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services Secretary Robert Green. Thank you, Rob. We anticipate that if this concept is seen as worthy of consideration, that Chancellor Perman will take it from there. So how did we get here? In January, there was an article in the Baltimore Sun that said there were 337 murders in 2021 in Baltimore City. There's an FBI study concluded that there was a 30% increase in homicides and an increase in violent crimes across the country since 2020. There were 18,000 inmates in Maryland prisons in 2019. The average sentence is 19.8 years, and the average stay is 7.5 years. And it costs $46,000 a year to house an inmate. A large percentage of these inmates are released from prison, return after committing another crime. And Baltimore Sun's statement was something needs to be done about this. We looked into this a little bit further, and we found that the data from Open Baltimore shows that the city recorded 177 homicides in the first 6 months of this year, the deadliest pace in more than a decade. So based upon this and what we know to be a strong interest in trying to deal with this problem, we decided to look into the potential for a University System of Maryland prison education program. This program could provide Maryland inmates with hope and employment opportunities following release, reduce recidivism, make our community safer, save the state money, and grow enrollment. Chair Gooden, based on our initial thoughts about this, requested that Chancellor Perman and I scope it for potential. So all of our findings to date are contained in a report which is in the board materials for today's meeting. And these include UBALT has initiated a similar program. On April 12th, Chancellor Perman and I met with President Schmoke and UBALT Professor Andrea Cordero Cantora, thank you, who runs the program. We learned that now there are 20,000 people incarcerated in Maryland, and UBALT is turning away inmates due to capacity constraints. All UBALT inmate students are Pell Grant recipients, and UBALT's foundation helps considerably by raising money. The details on how this program operates are in my report. Other USM institutions that are getting into this space or who are already there are Towson, Coppin, UMES, and Bowie State. Also, Goucher and Georgetown have active programs. We also discovered a similar program at Northwestern University, which coincidentally is Chancellor Perman's alma mater. Professor Jennifer Lackey is the director of the Northwestern Prison Education Program. I spoke with her on March the 18th. She enthusiastically welcomed our interest. She knows this space inside and out, and she noted that Northwestern's prison education program began with a MOU with the Illinois Department of Corrections. Inmates apply at the prison, are vetted by the Illinois Department of Corrections, and the Northwestern University Admissions Committee makes the admission decisions. I asked her whether there was any faculty resistance or what was the faculty reaction. And she told me, she said that the faculty loves this program, that there's a faculty waiting line. They love it because it's a change of pace and it gives them pride in creating a solution to a problem that needs a solution. She also said that they are given, the inmates are given full credit, and the faculty are also given credit on their course load requirements. The details on how these courses are taught is in the report. Also, she noted that the inmates and their families are forever grateful. Alumni and donors are very supportive, as is the surrounding community, because they understand that when these inmates are released, they are much more likely to be productive citizens and not become recidivists. He said Rutgers and Barth College have similar programs which work beautifully. And I thought this was an important point. The recidivism rate for student inmates who are released from the Illinois prison system, who have completed their prison education program, the recidivism rate is 0. She also played a very interesting video of a recent commencement that was conducted in an Illinois prison. And we were amazed watching this video that a large group of inmates wearing caps and gowns entered a room, just as in one of our commencements, walked down the center aisle, and with the traditional music playing in the background, and family, friends, faculty, and supporters were all in the room. The procession was orderly. The inmates were happy, proud, and waving to their family and friends. There was no indication whatsoever watching this video that this commencement was in a prison. There were hugs and handshakes by all when it was over. Professor Lackey also pointed out that educating inmates, incarcerated people, is a national movement. She anticipates an explosion of interest when Pell Grants are available in July of 2023. She told us we should move fast to get out front of this because the grant money is, only so much of grant money is available, and in order for us not to get run over by competitors. So on August the 4th, Chancellor Perman, Regent Herr, Professor Cantora, and I met with Assistant Secretary for Public Safety, Carolyn Scruggs, and her assistant, Danielle Cox, and they both were incredibly enthusiastic. He told us that there are 18 correctional facilities in the state of Maryland. Of these, the Eastern Correctional Institution in Somerset County has the largest population. And she said if a decision is made within the system should decide what courses it wishes to offer to meet workforce needs. And the course offering should be outlined in a simple 1 or 2 page document. She will then, within the Department of Corrections, evaluate the inmates who would best be served by these course offerings. And she said, don't worry, we know who the knuckleheads are. You won't get any of those. And she said that she would take a list of these students and turn them over to the system, and then the system admissions process would decide independently who to admit. She also said, and I think this was a particularly important point, that in consultation with the system, the Department of Corrections can set up the necessary IT capabilities so that the computer programs and the security necessary in this program would be met, and that this would all be done, as I said, in consultation with the system. So on August the 23rd, Regent Herr, Chancellor Perman, Vice Chancellor Bogman, Danielle Cox, who is Public Safety Director of Education in the state, and I met with Secretary Green and again with Assistant Secretary Scruggs. He informed us that a tablet has been given to every inmate incarcerated in Maryland, and that alone reduced inmate violence at the Eastern Correctional Institution by 99%, because he said the inmates having the tablet now had something to do rather than just sit around. He also said that the Baltimore City Jail Complex houses about 3,000 inmates and is an excellent place to introduce inmates to prison education programs and prison education opportunities. He is completely enthusiastic and recommends that the Department of Corrections enter into a partnership with the University System of Maryland that would be controlled by the system. Chancellor Perman and Senior Vice Chancellor Bogman also have now assembled a work group to potentially staff this effort, and those individuals are fully identified in my report that's in the materials. So what are the potential funding sources for this? Obviously, there are expenses, significant expenses associated with something like this. The Andrew W. Mellon Foundation provides grants for prison education programs. They're typically $1 million each. Pell Grants will be available to all qualified incarcerated individuals beginning in July 2023. Previously, they were offered only at selected schools. If I remember correctly, I think there were 56 schools that were initially given the right to accept Pell Grants for students. So they're going to expand that because that program was very successful. There's also the Maryland Justice Reinvestment Act. That was signed into law by Governor Hogan on May 19, 2016. And it's intended to reduce the prison population and to use the savings to reduce recidivism. So we think there's the potential for grant money there. There's also federal agency grants, as Regent Herr pointed out to us, including the U.S. Department of Justice. There are also, obviously, our system foundations and affiliated foundations. So we will be exploring all of these opportunities leading up to the November 11 full board meeting, where we'll have the forum and the full discussion on this. The strengths and weaknesses of this proposal are summarized in the report. So I won't go over them individually, but you can see them and you can read them at your leisure. There are also some excellent publications that provide valuable insight into this program and some historical information about implementation of the program in other schools, which are in the board materials right behind my report. So following a deeper dive into this subject, a full and comprehensive report will be presented again to CUSP, and there will be a forum on this, as I mentioned, with live presenters to talk about real-world experience at the November 11 board meeting. So I thank you for your time and attention, and we look forward to developing this further for your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And thanks, Bill, for summarizing the report so eloquently. And thanks for all of your work on you and Regent Herr on understanding this program. This was strictly informational at this point, as Bill said. Any recommendations or any plans will come back at a future meeting. And so, President Smoke.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you very much for the presentation, Regent Wood. I simply wanted to note that with the permission of Chancellor Perman, we are having an information session about our Second Chance program at Hidden Waters on October 25. Professor Cantor will be there, as well as some of the former inmates, we call returning citizens, who have graduated from the program, and one student who is currently in the program, who's on work release, will also be there to talk about the benefits of this program. That's October 25 in the evening at Hidden Waters.
Great, thank you.
Chancellor Perman.
I was going to see if Regent Herr had any comments.
Nothing further substantive to add, just that I think this is, there's a lot of will and there's demand and support from all sides. I'm delighted to hear that there is support within the CUSP president community, and I look forward to continuing to think this through and seeing what we can do on this front together.
The only comment I would make is that you've heard that College Park and Baltimore are each setting up important efforts to study gun violence. That is all to the good. Maybe I'm too simple-minded, but in this case, we have one intervention for which there is data. There are data to demonstrate the impact on recidivism. And it happens to be within our domain. We each, starting with me, write missives of outrage every time there's a mass murder. We each do it because we need to address our communities. Communities want to know what the leader thinks. I'm craving action. So if it can be demonstrated that this is something that those institutions within the system who have interest and capacity can do, we should seriously consider it.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I'd like to thank Regent Wood, of course, for the report. I just felt like it was only right that I comment on this. I feel like it's the place of higher education to get involved in programs like this geared towards recidivism and restorative justice. I've had the privilege of working under State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy for the past few months, so I've seen even recently, we're on record pace in Prince George's County when it comes to murders and things of that sort, so I've seen it firsthand how big of an issue it is. And like I said previously, I feel like it's the place of higher education to get to work on this. I'd also like to submit that or propose that we extend the efforts to programs of intermediate sanctions for youthful offenders. We see such initiatives being put in place by Aisha Braveboy in Prince George's County. I feel like we should take a look into programs like that sort of work to keep youthful offenders out of prisons with intermediate sanctions and programs, working towards recidivism by keeping them out of prison in the first place. And I feel like in programs like that, we have prime opportunity to get our hands on the youthful demographic and maybe engage in that sense before they're even in prison in the first place. I feel like that'd be a great way to work on the recidivism issue, and it's also a great group and a prime opportunity to get involved and intervene with the youthful demographic as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments for Bill? Oh, sorry, Doug.
No problem. Well said. I was involved in the Veterans Treatment Courts.
Can you hit the on button?
I was involved for a long time in the Veterans Treatment Courts, and we have a number of them across the state, so I'd like to offer any services I could. We got a lot of money from the VA, if we could identify them as veterans, and a lot paid for the rehabilitation program, so I think it's a great effort.
Any other comments? All right, Bill, as you can see, there's a lot of interest. Thank you for your dedication to this activity, and we look forward to the next report.
Thank you, Chair Gooden.
The next item is a naming request from the University of Maryland College Park, and I'll turn it over. This is an action item, and I'll turn it over to Regent Bresnan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, all. We have a request from the University of Maryland to approve the renaming of Maryland Stadium to CQ Stadium. Your materials provide an outline of the plan. I'm going to go ahead and call for a motion to approve this request and a second, and then I'm going to ask President Pines and his team to provide us some details during the discussion phase.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. And we'll open up for this. I will go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. And we'll have the discussion.
Yes.
It's all yours. Oh, Damon.
Damon Evans.
Thank you, Regent Bresnan and Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Regents and Presidents. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity this morning to come before you to seek approval of a new naming opportunity for Maryland Stadium. Many of you may recall that currently we have a long-standing relationship with Capital One. The field is currently named Capital One Field. We did that relationship some time ago, and that relationship was a 25-year relationship with a value of $20 million over those 25 years. Most of that money was given to us up front. So for the remaining 10 years of this deal, there is no revenue coming in. So what we looked at as an athletics department was, how do we drive more revenue to this asset that is so valuable on campus? We were able to negotiate with Capital One to relinquish their naming rights, to allow us to open it up. We hired a company called OVG, who specializes in going out and soliciting corporate sponsors for activities such as this. We looked and vetted a lot of different opportunities, and CQ seemed to be the perfect fit for us. And let me tell you a little bit of why we believe CQ is important and significant as we move forward. Naming rights, when we do things in intercollegiate athletics, we want to keep at the forefront, how can this benefit the institution as a whole? We understand that athletics is a very, very small part of the university. Our platform can be utilized to uplift the university. While this deal is significant from a revenue perspective, that revenue perspective is this. It is a 10-year deal that has guaranteed compensation of around $11 million, including a $2.5 million gift, as well as variable compensation that we believe will average around $300,000 to $400,000 per year. So for a total of $14 to $15 million over a 10-year period. But it's not just about the revenue. It's about a partnership. It's about how can we engage and work with CQ to do things that not only benefit our institution, but benefit our community as well. In looking at this partnership with CQ, what we found is that a lot of our values are in alignment. Some of their values deal with service, teamwork, honesty, and professionalism. We will partner with CQ to bring literacy programs to our campus and literacy wellness programs to our campus that will be beneficial to our students, our faculty, and our staff. In addition to that, CQ is heavily involved in community service. They have something called the CQ Kindness Campaign. We will collaborate with them and partner with them to do different community service activities in the surrounding area. This is in full alignment with us as a do-good institution. So as we continue and seek your support today, I believe because of all of the aforementioned reasons, along with the opportunities that are presented in the partnership with CQ, this could be something that is so beneficial across the board. I want to thank the Advancement Committee for taking time to meet with us to vet this issue. And I want to thank all of you this morning for listening to what we have to say and seeking your support. And hopefully you'll understand why this is so significant to the University of Maryland, College Park. With that being said, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
When would this take place?
The official naming would take place on October 1 for the Michigan State game. We're in the process of ordering signage. That will not all be complete at that time, but the transition, taking Capital One off the field and renaming it CQ Stadium, is set for October 1st, if approved.
Yes, Andy?
So Capital One paid for 25 years worth of naming. They got 10 years worth of naming?
They got a little bit more than 10 years worth of naming. If you take a look at it, it's with 10 years remaining, because it goes through 2032, meaning that we're in 2022, they've got about 15 years of naming.
When I pay for 25 years worth of something, I want 25 years worth of something. I feel like there's a missing part of the story. Why would they give up that?
Well, just to take a look at it, first and foremost, Capital One has been a very, very good partner of the University of Maryland, and we will continue to partner with Capital One. The deal that we're doing with CQ is an official, not an exclusive deal. The original deal with Capital One was a deal that was an exclusive deal that was campus-wide. So this allows us the opportunity to maintain a relationship with Capital One, and we were able to negotiate some things that would keep them as a partner. In this marketplace, just to be very, very candid, Capital One has another naming rights partner down in DC, so they see the value of that being more significant, and we were able to carve out some other things for them.
Got it, thank you.
Regent Herb?
I think this is a follow-up question to Regent Smerrick's question. Are we going to have to give some money back to Capital One as part of this deal, or are we?
No money going back. And I know this sounds crazy. The way that we talk about athletics, this is unprecedented because most people aren't going to relinquish their naming rights, but there's no cost associated with this. There's no money being given back to Capital One, but there are some things that we will still do with Capital One in some of our venues to where they'll still have some signage and so forth.
My compliments then on your negotiating skills.
We have a good team.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Damon.
Thank you so much.
Okay, this ends the public session of our meeting, and the Open Meetings Act permits public bodies to close their meetings to the public in circumstances outlined in 3-305 of the Act, and to carry out administrative functions exempted by 3-103 of the Act. The Board of Regents will now vote to reconvene in closed session. The agenda for the public meeting today includes a written statement and a citation of the legal authority and reasons for closing the meeting, and a listing of the topics to be discussed. The statement has been provided to the Regents and is posted on the USM's website. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The meeting is closed.